A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris from CCA, California, and today we are spending some time and afternoon with Eric and Cal from Cal 2 Speeds. How are you guys?
Doing good. Doing good, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Let's wait for more people to start gathering up here. But tell me about what you guys have been up to during this quarantine. Have you guys been doing any fishing or just been busy in the shop? What's been going on with you guys?
Well, we've had a lot of inquiries over the last few years about some different gear ratios on stuff. And so while I was a little bit slow, Eric was still a little busier, but I was a little bit slow. And so I started designing different gear ratios for different reels to people's requests. So we call them our COVID gears.
That's awesome.
And just trying to add different makes and models of reels to our line so that we can take care of everybody.
Excellent. How about you, Eric? Have you been just been busy and swamped?
Working on reels and stuff like that. Made it out on the water 3 or 4 times. It was and going out next week, so that should be a lot of fun. Hopefully those big ones hang on and they're still there, right?
Absolutely. Let's take a look in Facebook here. Hey, how's it going, Todd from TB Metal Art? Good to see you. Hey, Cameron. Hey, Mike. Hello, Sandy. How are you guys? Awesome. Everyone's lining up to talk to you guys, Cal and Eric. Awesome. Guys, if you, as a reminder, this is for you. So if you have any questions at all for Cal or Eric, please leave them in the comments below. We'd love to answer those for you. But so guys, let's kind of start off with the basics here. Oh, nice toy. I like in your hand there. Let's start off with the whole story, how you kind of built your business and all that, and let's go straight from the beginning.
Well, in the very beginning, my wife bought me for Christmas present a Penn 50 SW. She ordered it. It didn't even come in for like 3 or 4 more months. I got it, went fishing with it, and absolutely loved having a 2-speed because I was fishing 16-day trips at the time. And so I came back and she wasn't real happy about it, but I cut it up and figured out how to put the parts into my older 50Ws. Got that. It took me a couple of weeks to figure that all out and stuff like that. And at the time, there was a gentleman named Ray Lemmy, which has since passed away, but he was the guru on drag systems in international reels. He really knew what he was doing. And I took it down to him and showed it to him. And he says, that's something you can sell there. So I came back, figured my pricing and everything else, and put an ad in the Western Outdoor News. Convert your Penn International 50 and 50W to 2-speed, call Cal.
Yeah, just like in the back of the paper, like the little 2-line ad or whatever it is.
At that time, it was like $25 for 3 weeks, type of thing. I put it in there, and I never forget, I had 17 phone calls the first morning that ad came out. And of that, I think it was 14 of the people dealt with this Ray Lemmy. And I told him we could just take it to them and he'd take care of it. And it was his reputation that actually got us started. That Saturday, he called me Saturday morning, and he already had 50 reels for us to switch to 2-speed. So I had to really hustle because I figured I'd do 8 or 10 or 25 or something like that. So I really hustled, and we got started. And then luckily I had my own manufacturing business at the time, so I was able to make all my own parts in house. Originally I was buying parts from Penn and modifying them, but they could not supply enough parts because they just didn't make spare parts for stuff didn't need that much spare parts. So that's what got us started. And then when Ray passed away in '92, I started doing drag work there, and then Eric came on board right about that same time also. And then we started working together doing the drag work on and the two-speeding. Most of our work was two-speed and drag work for the internationals. But as time goes on, there's fewer and fewer of the older reels for guys to do. The newer models were coming out. All the reel manufacturers coming out with two speeds. And so we started working on drag work on the newer reels and different gear ratios and stuff like that, because all the manufacturers do a great job of building reels, but they can't match a reel to the individual person because that takes custom work to match it to the person. And there's enough people around that want a reel to fish just the way they want it and not like the factory had it exactly, for us to go through and tune and what we call blueprint reels. And there's enough, there's quite a few guys who like different lower gears or different higher speed gears, that it's not a huge thing, but it's something that we do and offer for specialty reels. So that's basically it.
And now, I mean, as I was looking around the room, there's like 15 reels around the room here, maybe 16, 17. They're all two speeds. They're all factory two speeds. So we kind of had to morph our business into, like he was talking about, gear ratios, you know, and blueprinting and doing all that other stuff now too, because so many of them come, you know, like the Okuma Macaras, they come at two speed. And the Avets, they're two speeds, and the Italicas and Tiagras and stuff like that. 99% of them that in our kind of business that we're working on, they're already all two speed.
Excellent.
And we have actually a couple manufacturers in designing of the reels.
Awesome. Awesome. Very cool. Cal, does that 50W reel, is that your favorite? I'm sorry, the 50SW, is that your favorite reel to date, or do you have another favorite?
Well, actually, I like the newer reels yet. The 50SW was a great reel. It's actually, they quit making the 50SW almost 15 years ago. And now Penn they went through the V series. Now they have their VI series, which I like. That I am a Penn man because I was raised, my dad was a Penn man and everything else. But the other reels like the Avets, the Acurates, the Okumas, they're all, the Shimanos, they're all very, very, very good reels.
Well, and also too is, you know, the size reel. So with the invention of Spectra and everything else like that, and these really thin braids and all that, people have really gone down to the, you know, the smaller reel, where I got a reel here that I've got, you know, 500 yards basically on, and it's a small little reel that, you know, instead of the olden days where a 50 wide, what got you about 450 yards?
400 yards, 100.
400, you know what I mean? So it's, you know, smaller reels nowadays, it seems so much.
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, you kind of hit the nail right on the head there. Over time, with all this technology, I mean, just within the last decade, I'm sure it had to have changed either, you know, all these reels, and we've all seen it with all these companies. And I'm sure you guys have seen it too, just with the advancement of Braid and mono and all that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, this our passion is we love to go. We scheduled this meeting because we would have just been back from Prince Edward Island, where we go every year, and it gives us fantastic stories and a great time where we go fishing. But that really is the proving ground for everything. If it's not to the top 0.5%, it's going to break, whether it's reels, rods, line. I was back there on one fish because it's all stand up. So it's kind of like watching the wicked tuna, but take it up quite a bit notch, you know, a notch. And so on one fish that I was fishing, I broke 2 harnesses, you know, that we were fishing. We broke one and we were like, oh, hey, let's go get the old reliable one. Boom, that one blew up on the same fish. So I mean, and they have that with hooks, lines, reels, everything.
Rods.
So, and so you were talking about taking it to the next degree on each bit of the tackle. That's where we really notice it when we do that stuff.
He is actually fishing 70 to 80 pounds of drag stand-up.
Not always.
Not always, but up to that amount.
That's a lot of drag.
Up to that amount. But when he does that, somebody is hanging on to it. You're not, you know, we don't just have you doing that. We have one of the big AFCO pads and belts and stuff like that. so you have a big handle to hang on to. Because if you lose your balance at all, you're in trouble. But with that kind of drag, even though most of the time, most of the people aren't doing it, he's only doing it at certain times when it's flat, you push. We have broken 2 or 3 of our rods have been broken. You can't help it. It just because they get so loaded up and you can't maneuver fast enough to bring a rod around it. So it's at a point where it doesn't twist and stuff like that, because these tuna they'll come up 50 feet away from you and then charge the boat and go right underneath the boat. And if you've got a lot of drag on, fairly amount of drag on, you can't turn, you can't move. It's just the rod rotates over, boom, snap.
Wow. Wow. That's unreal. Hey, we have a question from, I'm not sure if this is a relation from Trevor Sheets. He says, do you guys make high-speed scissor lifts? Does he make high-speed scissor lifts?
Yeah, that's my grandson.
Excellent. Excellent. Wayne says only the best from you guys, which is absolutely true. He also asks, how do you like the fathoms, the Penn fathoms?
Well, Eric and I sold a lot of our older technology and stuff, and we bought fathoms. The price is very reasonable. They hold up pretty doggone well. They're a pretty doggone good reel for the price point. And that is actually where we've been targeting a lot of our gear ratio. This is a Fathom 40 that you can see in my hand here. Now it's a prototype, so we're not sure yet if it will go onto the market, but it is what I'm going to call the ultimate bomb reel for Wahoo. It gets 5 feet of line every time I turn the handle. It's a 7-to-1 gear ratio on the high end. Now, I don't know what low gear I'm going to put into it yet, or just leave it stock low gear, but we're going to be testing it. I'm going to test it in Cabo just to make sure you can turn the handle. Because if you can't turn the handle,
so we made 2 of them. So I'm going to test this one next week when I'm on the outer limits next week, and then he's going to test the other one in Cabo. Now these ones, this is up for the 25 and the 30. This one here, we kicked it up to 6.6 to 1, and it's been tested, and we've had a bunch of those gears out, and guys have used them, and they really love them.
Which still gets us about 45 inches of line for turning the handle on high speed. And I've caught a couple Wahoo on it, loved it. He's caught some tuna on it. So it worked out real well. But we also put a lower low gear in these things for the guys my age that, hey, once I get the fish on the reel, I can't turn the handle. Well, we put a lower low gear to give guys a little extra power. Granted, the line doesn't come on as fast, but if you can turn the handle, you can put a line on. If you can't turn the handle, you can't put the line on. So that's why we made the lower gears for the Fathoms 25 through 40s. We have a different gear ratio, and it's all 100% interchangeable with the Torques also. So those do. And we do the same thing on the Italicas, the 12s, 16s, 20s, and 25s. We put a lower low gear in those right now also for a lot, because those are very, very nice reels.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, Wayne also mentioned that smaller reels catching bigger fish. Absolutely the case.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we're seeing. I mean, it's over the last few years where guys are just doing smaller and smaller reels and shorter trips and stuff like that too. I mean, you love going local now to catch for 2.5 on the tomahawk and some of the other boats to catch giant fish, right?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Awesome. Richard, I see your question. All I can say is stay tuned. We will address that a little bit later. Jack says, Cal's 2-speed rocks. I had all my Italicas blueprinted and lower gears installed in the 16 and 20, just like what we were saying.
Yeah, there's a 25 that we got right here. That's where the guys have had us, you know, they're filling up 80% full of Spectra, fishing short top shots, having us machine the cams and the drags and everything else like that and build them up. And this happens to be ours where we put a little bit longer handle on it just for a little bit more cranking power, same thing, and lower gear and all that kind of stuff. Yep.
The handle situation is something that a lot of different people like different handles. They like a different knob. You know, maybe it's not just because of the length, but they like a particular knob. And so we've learned how now to put most of those knobs onto arms that will fit a majority of the different manufacturers. So you want a knob off of X and put it on Y, we can generally do it for you.
Awesome. Do you guys happen to see like any, I guess, what would be the word? Do you see more of like, say, the power handles versus the regular knobs, or vice versa?
It really varies. So we get some guys, so he has one of his friends. He's a huge, big, tall guy and big hands. He likes the ones like the big old knobs that are on the reels. We get another one of our friends, Jimmy Lou. He likes the smaller little handle that he's fishing. And, you know, guys pretty much, if they've done a little bit of fishing, they kind of know what they like. And so we'll get guys say, hey, by the way, I like, you know, that knob. Can you put this on all my reels or most of them and stuff like that? And that's usually what we're finding. And that's kind of like our little niche there of guys putting on the handles that they want for them.
The length of the arm on most of them, would like as long an arm as is possible, as long as it's not too long. You know, there were some old rock cod handles that were like almost a foot long. Those are not any good for what we're doing. But the length of the arm can be anywhere from 1/4 inch to 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch longer than a stock handle. There's a lot of the reel manufacturers still have their smaller reels will have a real short handle where you can put a longer handle on it and get a lot more power out of it that way without doing any real extra stuff inside gear wise. You can just do it with a handle.
Interesting. Okay. Jim is checking in. He says, have you had to adapt drags to accept the greater strength of diameter ratio of the braid line?
Oh, absolutely. We started doing that back in the early 90s. I tested braid for Russ Iser before it was even on the market. I took it on I had it on long range trips and I tested it. And right there, I saw the writing on the wall. And so and drag systems for years, that Ray Lemmy, the gentleman that I mentioned earlier, he used to custom build the internationals, go through the drags, get them so that they would fish 100-pound test with no problem whatsoever, the older reels, stuff like that. And nowadays, the reels have developed to the point where they might not push them as hard as we do here on the West Coast.
Excellent. Awesome. Todd has a question. I had a friend give me a Penn Squall 16 VS. He put 50 on white braid on it. What should I use thus for trolling 100-pound tuna? I don't know how to use a 2-speed.
Okay, the Squall is one of the less expensive reels. It's a pretty good reel. 50-pound test line is probably, depending on what size Squall it is too, is probably about where you want to go on a Squall. The 2-speed on that one is I'm trying to think of the way I think it's done exactly like I think it's just like the Fathom, where you have a button in the center that you push in, okay, and then you give it a twist to come back out into high gear. I think is what the Squall setup is.
If not, it would be the other one, which is
Yeah.
like I'm pretty sure
It's the same as on the tell him his best bet's to go to his local tackle store and ask them how to do it, and also ask their recommendation because
for setting it up.
setting it up,
Absolutely.
because they'll know after looking at his reel and what size it is, they'll know what to match it with.
Excellent, excellent.
That's true, yeah.
Artie's checking in. We all know your expertise in reels. How did you get into restoring old cars? Say hello to Nancy.
Well, I don't do restoring. I purchase. When I was 12 years old, I saw a 32 Ford Highboy Roadster with just a flathead in it and a black primer paint job. And at that time I said, one of these days I want to own one. Well, it took me a long time, but about 5 years ago I bought one. But it's not quite that shape now. It's pretty sharp, and I dropped a Ford Coyote motor in it, so it runs pretty good.
Excellent, excellent. Jeremy's checking in. How's it going, Jeremy? He asks, how can I get work done on my reels? Is there a website I can visit to see what options they have for my reels?
There is. I mean, our website is cals2speed.com using the number 2. But, you know, you can give us a call too, and we can kind of go from there. You know, it's usually good to look at your leisure at the website and get a few ideas of what you really want to do. And then we can end up talking to you and say, like, okay, what kind of reels do you have? What kind of fishing are you doing? And what do you want to do? Where do you kind of see yourself going from there? Because maybe special gear ratios aren't for everybody type of thing, or, you know, you don't need all of that stuff. And so it's getting the guy set up as best as we can for how he's going to fish.
Excellent, excellent. Mark's checking in. How's it going, Mark? He says, I have a handful of jig masters. I had just replaced the drags on them. Any ideas on what to do with them?
Go fishing, right? Get out there and fish them. Yeah. I mean, if you've got good drags in them, get out there. Now, you know, some of these bigger fish, you may need a 2-speed. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, those are, you know, if you go back traditionally, they were using those a lot around here, but now as fish have gotten bigger and bigger and closer on trips, now you're starting to need some bigger reels. So I do know that some of the boats have loaner gear. A lot of the landings have rental gear and stuff like that too, as far as having that for a bigger setup. But those are great reels too.
Excellent, excellent. Jack's checking in. He says, mono top shot or straight braid for Wahoo? What's your favorite jig for Wahoo?
Well, when I'm fishing Wahoo, I like to use generally a little bit more mono because of the stretch. So I would use a reel that has maybe 50 to 100 yards of mono and then the specter behind it. The type of jigs, I'm more of a Caddy 9 person, or maybe a bomb type of thing. Is what I like to use. In the last few years, I've been fishing more bait on them because I just can't turn the handle that much anymore.
Sweet, sweet. Jim has another question. What kind of work can you do to blueprint an Okuma Makaru 10 2-speed?
We go completely through the drag system. Right here's one that we've got right here that we've gone through. What we do is we go through and we match it to the size of line that you want to fish, or range of lines. But once in a while I'll get somebody who says, I want to fish 30 to 100. No. 30, 40, 40, 50, 50, 60, something like that. And we can match it to your size line that you want. Sometimes we even get them to free spool a little better yet. Sometimes we don't. We also make our little easy shift button on it, which we can put on at the same time. But most of the Macaras, which is a very, very good reel. In fact, I'm working with Okuma right now on their new LA house to try to solve some problems on it. I did help work on the Macara originally when it was brought out. Most of the Macaras are actually a little heavy cammed out of the box, they get a little bit more drag than most people really need. And so therefore it's a little more sensitive. Well, so we tune it back to match out what the customer wants.
So you get a little bit more adjustment in it, and set them up. So
Excellent, excellent. Mike's checking in. I have a new Pen 30. I want to drop off to be blueprinted and Spectra added. Are you around tomorrow so I can drop it off? And when is the turnaround time to get it back?
right now we're running, I would say about 3, maybe 4 weeks. Tomorrow's a perfect time. There's a 30 you have right there, Dad. You can grab that. There's a couple different things we can do. We can add the Spectra if he wants. This does actually have a special new 1.2-to-1 low gear. That was another COVID inspired project that we had. A customer kept saying, I want it done, I want it done. And well, okay, well, we went and did it, and then we can do the blueprinting on it. But yeah, we are around tomorrow all day.
Awesome.
We just asked first to call first, just to make sure we are here, not stepped out, type of thing, because it is my residence that we're at.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, speaking of COVID-inspired projects, do you have anything else that you've been working on throughout this whole, I guess, COVID quarantine deal?
Most of it's the gears. I mean, just making these specialty gears and handles and just trying to just make sure that we just kind of expand the whole, I won't say product line, but as far as the reels and stuff.
We've started to look at smaller reels so that we can, retune those, maybe have to make some special tooling to do the stuff that we want to do on it and stuff like that. Because you get a reel in and they say they want something done. Well, if you haven't worked on that reel yet, you're not sure. So you got to, we have a good idea, what to do. And we generally try to only work on what we consider the top quality reels, because if we take a less quality reel and do a lot of work on it, say build it so it'll fish heavier, and then it breaks, it's our fault. Okay, so what we like to do is we like to make sure we're staying with the top lines of all the reels. At first, Eric and I weren't sure about working on the fathoms. Would they hold up? Well, we have a good friend that had us to do his, and he made us push it a lot farther than we ever wanted to push it.
He's overfishing it.
He's overfishing it. And I says, that's spend money. He says, no, I can buy 2 of them. He says, if they break, well, one breaks, I still got another one. And he actually has pushed it beyond it's what I think it should be done, but it's held up okay for him. So that's
one of the things that we did do quite a few during this the COVID thing is we had guys that are left-handed fishermen on these brand new 12 VISX, 20, 16, 16 VISX, 30 VISX, the new ones there. They said, okay, here I fish left-handed, but go ahead and get it done. So we had to design it, figure out a way to make them left-hand where it's not making a whole new reel, but it's turning it around and being able to set it up inside so the handle turns the correct way and work for that. So we've done that too.
We now make left-handed on. We've done the 12s through the 50s, and I know someday I'll get a call for a 70, but I haven't yet. But we have done. I've made all the tooling so that we can do all those models.
Fantastic. And that's actually a really good point. There's quite a bit of left-handers versus right-handers and all of that, and getting your reel customized to what you want fishing. I mean, there's nothing really better than that, honestly.
Right. Yep.
So Carrie's checking in. How's it going, Carrie? She said you mentioned matching the performance of the reel to the individual. As a lady angler, what are some alterations you would suggest for me for a TAC 12 or a TAC 16 2-speed, and why?
Well, okay, your Italica, first thing, it depends on the woman, and depends on how you're fishing. If you're using the rail, you can be quite a small woman and still handle a fairly amount of drag. That's what I mean by tuning. I tune the reel to fit what you want to do. Now, granted, on Italica 12 and 16, yes, you can just back your preset off if you want fairly light drag, but you'll go about, say, maybe a quarter or halfway to strike before your drag picks up. What we'll actually do is rework your cam and your springs in there so that you can put it right in gear and have a light drag and then have not as much drag at strike as the reel would out of the box. Just the same thing as what we do, but in reverse for a man who wants to actually fish a little heavier than it does out of the box. The other thing is definitely a possibility of the low gears. Because if you're still fishing enough drag for the bigger fish, then you might need the help of the low gear and or a longer arm on your handle. If you can't fish the drag, the low gear may not help you anyway, because you don't have enough drag pressure to make you have to need the low gear. But if you physically can't turn the handle even with the lighter drag, then we can go to the gears.
It would be one, I would definitely try it first. Fish the reel, know what you can do, know what you feel. Like, hey, yeah, it turns fine, or man, I could use a little bit more power. And whether that's in the length of the arm or gearing, or sometimes both, you know, that's where you can figure out where it is best to set it up for you.
Excellent. Wayne has a question. What makes your grease so much better than others?
It's a secret.
Yeah. I went to a very, very good grease manufacturer and had them design something. We had some things in mind, and they went ahead and designed it, and we've had very, very good luck with it. We've had it tested by a lot of different manufacturers, and at the time, we have approximately 11 manufacturers using it in their reels, and they've been very happy with it. It's not the cheapest grease on the market, but it's a quality grease, and we have had very good luck with it. And the nice thing about it is that there's some greases that you can use on the gears that are very good, but you can't use it on the drags, and vice versa. Our grease will work on both. And Okuma uses it in their reels. Accurate uses it in their reels. There's several other manufacturers. Fenor uses it in some of their reels. Van Staal uses it in their spinners. So.
Excellent. William from the LA chapter checking in. How's it going, William? How often should you get your reel serviced?
Well, I mean, that's based on how much you fish. So I just answered this question yesterday for a guy that was here. It's usually trying to find out, are you a once a year fisherman and you're going on an 8-day, or are you going out every other week on an overnight trip and stuff? It matters the amount that you're going to fish. There isn't a set in stone, but usually I tell guys this after they've gotten a reel done. Let's say they get the reel done here. We say several years you should be able to get out of it, no problem. Now we get some customers that says, nope, you get my reel every year. It's peace of mind. I want to make sure everything is running up to the tip top and running good. So what do you think about a time frame?
Well, that's the same thing. What I tell people also is, if you know when you're going to be going, give yourself 3 or 4 weeks or a month before, if it's that far off. Test your reel, take it out of the box, spin it, make sure the bearings are still good. Turn the handle, pull line off on the drag. If you do all that and everything feels good, it should be fine. But that also gives you time to get it to somebody. If it needs a service, like get it to us or your local tackle store or whoever does your work, give them a little bit of time to get it done, so that you aren't running in at the last moment. Well, gee, I'm leaving tomorrow. Can't you get it done? Well, the time of year that you're going, more often than not, everybody else is going too. And so tackle stores and ourselves and stuff like that are quite busy. But that's all you need to do. And because if you take a reel and you wipe it off, I absolutely do not want people dunking their reel in a bucket of water. That to me is an absolute no-no. But what you can do is you can rinse it off gently with warm water. You can wipe it off, wipe it down, let it, never set it on the end with the handle up to dry, set it on the frame like that to dry. So any water inside will roll around and out and not down into the bearings. And that's actually for star drag and lever drag even. Then take and clean the reel good and put it away. If you leave it for 6-8 months or something like that, and you don't check it before, you very well might have a bad bearing because the salt water got into it. And when you put it away, the salt water in there hasn't corroded anything yet. So always check it a little earlier.
Absolutely. And, you know, me coming from the, you know, the charter boat days and all that, I mean, it was almost religion. You had to get your reels serviced at least once a year, just based on the amount of times that we were using it too. And that absolutely makes sense. Just kind of all depends on how.
Well, and then that totally makes sense, but yeah. Oh, and then like back in the day, we used to, a lot of the drags had this, like the original smoothies. If you got water in them, they were kind of, they were real jerky and stuff like that. Now, a lot of them are using the carbon fiber material, and they have a little bit of grease in them, so that it keeps the water out somewhat, and that actually makes it last a little bit longer. But you know, if you end up throwing a reel overboard, you know, get it to your tackle guy or us or whoever is working on it for you right away, and they can generally salvage your bearings and stuff out of it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we kind of touched it on it already, but Wayne also just asked tips on washing and cleaning reels correctly. Do you guys prefer, you know, the spray bottle versus another method? Or I know, Cal, you just mentioned wiping them down versus in the air dry. Any other tips that we can learn?
Yeah, I was gonna say
What I do quite often is like if it was like on a long range trip, a 16-day trip or 10-day trip, where you're heading home, you're taking your reels off and everything else. I would take my reels off. I would go into the restroom, or some of them even have a tall neck thing, and I would put it in gear. So that I've got the drags locked, and I'd shift them into low gear, and I gently run warm water over them, not force it, just gently run water over them, and then take it outside right away and spin it good in high gear, shift into low gear, spin it in high gear, throw all the water out of the line, and then I would throw it off. Then I would go down to my room. I'd take my dirty towel, lay it on my bed, and I'd set the reel on it, and just not with the handle not up, just on it, so that and I just do that with all my reels. And generally, you're doing that at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. So by the time you get ready to go to bed, they're pretty well dry. Then you can put them into your carry bag or put your little bag. One of the things some guys do that we've seen happen is they will decide to not wash their reels off until they get home, which is okay. But do not put them in a cloth bag and not have them washed off and clean. Because you put them in that cloth bag, all that salt in there gets in the cloth bag, you wash your reel, you shove it back in there, and now you got salt everywhere. And you open up your bag and, well, where's all the corrosion coming from? Because you've had that salt in that cloth bag.
And we'll like when we get back home, so they're pretty clean, but we'll just take some kind of spray it on a rag or something else like that, and then just wipe it down this way, as opposed to spraying the reel itself. Just kind of put it on the rag and wipe it down and go that route. That covers most of it.
Excellent. Great tips. Jim has another question. What are some of the most popular upgrades for the Shimano Italica 52 speed?
Well, there's the blueprinting, which Cal touched on, but we'll hit on it again in case he's just joined us. The blueprinting is where we machine the cam and the stainless plate and go through and set the reel up for how he's going to fish. So setting up the range on the lever, and going from there. Now, some of the guys we also do have dog springs for that reel. So if you hear this reel, let me see if I can. So normally a Italica is not sounding like that. So what we do is we go in on the back side of the dogs there, drill a little hole and put little coil springs in behind each one of the dogs, and it's forcing it to engage each time. Some guys have said, well, if it makes noise, I don't want it. Other guys have said, hey, if it makes it so it won't fail or have a problem with it, then I definitely want it. So, it's both guys have a good point, and it's for some guys and not for the others, but that's
And then
for the most part.
and then we have a 1.2 to 1 low gear.
That's true. Yeah, we have the low speed gear for that
Lower
too.
low speed gear. So, and it depends, the gearing especially depends on the guy, the strength, and the size of fish.
Of course, of course. Awesome. William has another question. I see a lot of reels in those Crown Royal bags. What do you think of that?
Hey, somebody's got a nice habit of Crown Royal, right? Bags are fine as long as they're soft on them. I think that's fine.
That's, just a soft bag is absolutely fine. It just protects her.
Yep.
Excellent. Fair enough. Fair enough. Al's checking in. How's it going, Al? Our Inland Empire chapter president. He's asking what exactly what is involved in blueprinting a reel?
Well, first thing, we strip the reel all apart. We clean everything good. Then we go, depending on the reel, we remachine in the drag system. We machine in the cams. We may change springs. Every reel is different, and every person's requirements. We may not machine yours the same as we do somebody else's because your requirement is different. I mean, we have one particular customer who had his Italica 50s. He wanted at least 50 pounds of drag at full with good free spool. So we had to machine stuff a little different on that to get that to do it. But it does it, and that's a lot of drag on that reel. And the reel is physically capable to do it, but the factory doesn't make it that way because it would not fit 90% of the people. So that's so doing the machining and then matching all that, we regrind cams. It all depends on the model reel and what it is, but we basically always machine somewhere in the drag system.
And what most people don't know too is like when we're building the reels, building them back up, we may open them. I mean, every once in a while we put it together and we're like, wow, I nailed it. It's ready to go. But usually this one needs to be lighter, heavier, whatever it is. And you're going back through and you're custom fitting it. We're putting it on the digital scale and checking it, saying, hey, guy's got 6 reels, 4 reels, whatever it is. He wants them all to have a good range and set up where, he wants exit strike and just 1 or 2 when he put it into gear. So there's a lot that goes into the blueprinting of the reels of setting them up so that they fish the way that the guys, the gals, the kids, whoever's going to be fishing that reel so that it's set up for them.
Excellent. Jim asked, do we still need to back off the drag while it is in storage?
Okay. If he's talking a star drag reel, yes, back your drag off. If he's talking a lever drag reel, you don't need to back your preset off. All you need to do is pull the lever back to free spool and put your clicker on. You do not have to take the preset on a lever drag reel and back it up. All that does is just a little bit of minor change in the spring load inside. Just put it in free spool, put the clicker on. You don't have to take your preset. If you're a type of person that wants to back your preset all the way off, on a lot of the newer reels like the Italicas and the VI series, the Fathoms and the Torques, if you back your preset all the way off, the knob falls off.
So yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff, you're probably better just leaving it where it was set if you're talking about levers, right?
Levers.
As long as you put it in or close to it, you're good under low pressure.
If on the older internationals, if you back your preset all the way off, always bring it back up a quarter turn, because if you back it all the way off, it sits against itself inside, and then you can't loosen it with your fingers. Okay, and that's where we've had more guys twist the knobs off right there. So if you take it your old international, you want to back the preset off, back it all the way off, then bring it back up a quarter turn. Then you'll always be able to take it and start to turn it when you pick it up to use it again.
That makes sense. It's almost like leaving something in the same place for 6 months at a time outside, and there's bound to have markings or rustling or whatever like that. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Richard's asking, what Wayne asked, plus any preventative treatment, coating susceptible components, or other prep for reels that will get heavy saltwater exposure with delays in cleaning, aka Baja road trips, et cetera, et cetera.
Not really.
Not really.
I mean,
There's
you know, it's-
Saltexes and sprays like that guys use. I've never really used them. Your best bet, just a wet rag and wipe it off. Just wipe, especially guys will forget to wipe off the chrome on their handles and the bar and the stainless stuff, and it'll start to fit. Just take a wet rag and just wipe the reel off. As much as anything, it'll help.
Excellent, excellent. Carrie's going back to our original question about those Crown Royal bags. Does that include reel covers?
That the Crown Royal bag is his reel cover.
Oh, as far as putting them in it, yeah.
Yes.
You could get salt in some of those ones. You know, we were talking about holding off on putting them until you got back and stuff. You know, if your reel's thoroughly cleaned and all that other stuff, and you got the salt off your line and stuff, yeah, it's fine to put them back in it. But it's good to make sure that you're thoroughly dry. We have seen guys that have put them in there and the line's wet, this stuff's wet, and just they put them away for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is, and they get them out and they have a mess sometimes.
Excellent. Davey Brown from Okuma is checking in. How are you, Davey? He's asking, is there any blueprinting or upgrades needed for the Macara reels right out of the box?
We think so, even though we helped design it. We think it does because it's the Okuma Macara is an extremely good reel, okay? But it is, in our opinion, for most people, built, their cam is too drastic for the average fisherman, okay? And so what we do is we retune that, recam it, redo stuff inside. So it's a great reel if you're the type of fisherman that just puts your lever to strike and that's all you do, fish it the way it is. But if you're type of fisherman that likes to slide your lever up and down, most of the Macaras, especially your 20s and up, when you start to go over strike, if you have a fair amount of drag at strike, you start to go up over strike, it increases dramatically. And we have pretty well solved that.
And that's where we adjust the ramp, you know, for say a little bit when we so that it makes it easier.
Excellent, excellent. Here he's also asking, do you back off the tension as well?
I think that's what we had just discussed about the preset. Yeah, we had talked about it. Maybe it's something else, but that's what I assumed that we were talking about. But
Gotcha.
yeah, no, we're there's not that much of a need for that. I mean,
It's just put the lever back into free spool. That backs off the tension inside 99%. You back your preset back off, it only changes a little bit.
Excellent, excellent. Jim's checking in. When deep dropping, the line tends to stay damp and smell of mildew while in storage, even deep into the line. Is there any cure for this?
Yeah,
you can clean it. Yeah.
take your line completely off, wash it real good, just put it out in the sun and let it dry for several days, and put it back on your reel. And we do that. It's not the cheapest of processes, but we do have some customers that bring their reels in and have us take all their line off. We take it off on a Swifty used to make a washing thing that we take the line off and very softly, we wash it good, we let it dry good. Then we have to transfer it off of that on another spool, transfer it off of that spool to another spool, then put it back on the fellow's reel. And we do, we probably pack line Spectra as tight as anybody does. I use up to 130-pound test line. I use a minimum of 10% of the breaking strength of the line. I have my machine weighs 500 pounds, and I've got a big tensioner unit that I built that has a 130 drag washer in it. And I actually set and test the tension with the scale before I put line on.
Excellent. That's good to know. Good to know. Well, since we're talking about like customization and, basically is what your bread and butter, I'm sure you probably have some crazy stories about any crazy requests that you've gotten from your customers. What would be the craziest customization that you've actually received and actually done too?
Oh, we've got a bunch of them. So I'll start with one. So a guy one time said he had an 80 and he sent it in. He wanted to get some work done, and he actually had this gorgeous engraving on the left side of the whole reel with a diamond and everything else like that. And he told my dad, I just wanted to make sure that you guys take really good care of it. It's pristine, everything else. Well, it comes in and he opens it and there's a scratch. So my dad's like, oh man, I got to call this guy. He calls him and he goes, oh yeah, I know about that scratch, but other than that, it's good. And he was a customer for years and years and just kept sending it back and getting it done. That's one of them. We've done for like Navy guys off of ships that they're not fishing huge reels, but they need massive amounts of drag. Because he's like, yeah, the boat's not stopping. He goes, we have to crank whatever we catch up 40 feet. That's some of them from oil derricks.
Yeah, from an oil derrick, we had a fellow do a 16S.
We built reels for guys that were fishing for giant tuna, big yellowfin off the beach. There were some guys off of rocks and stuff like that.
Yes, in Hawaii.
In Hawaii, fishing off of rocks and cliffs and all this other stuff. They have these elaborate ways of launching them out there with kites and rocket launcher things. And I mean,
We've had guys who actually fly kites that want us to build multiple speed reel for them to get so that they can get their kites in because they're so hard to wind in heavy wind. So you just don't know what you're getting into.
Wow, that's unreal. I mean, I've seen a couple of videos and I've heard about, our armed servicemen dragging stuff off their carriers, off their boats, and not stopping and all that. But actually, hear it from you guys, that's just mind-boggling.
Yep.
Well, the
Al
one
has
with
another
the on the oil,
yeah,
the one that was on the oil derrick right out here off of Santa Barbara. He says, it's what people see me fishing up there, way up there. He says, and I get bit. He says, and they see this yellowtail going 40 feet into the air. And he says, I wind it all the way up.
oh my goodness. I wonder how long of a gaff you really need to do that, to do it correctly.
It ain't long enough.
Maybe you could figure out some kind of
Yeah, no kidding. Al has another question. Have you done any cam upgrades or changes on accurate Valiant reels?
No,
not at this point.
not at this point. We've kind of talked about it and thought about it, and right now, it's kind of on the back burner. Okay, it's one of those things that.
I mean, if we get enough requests, we probably would, but it also takes a little bit to learn each one of the reels. You don't just jump into it right away. And I mean, we have, hundreds of hours literally in each reel and just learning the little intricacies of what to do and how to do them. So we just don't have a lot of experience with those right now.
Fair enough. Davey Brown says, so awesome listening to some legends. Is there a particular trip that you went on that stands out in your mind? And do you have any favorite destinations?
Well, the one trip that stands out in my mind was a trip about year 50, so it'd be 35 years ago or so, that I took with Eric. It happened to be on a yacht called the Pearl. And he was 13, weren't you?
Yeah, 12 or 13.
12 or 13 years old. He had never caught a wahoo. He caught 25 on iron the first day. We had 6 of us had over 250 wahoo in a day and a quarter. That trip, I will never see that again.
Wow,
For
that's
me,
unreal.
I take a second here to move the camera, but to me, it's this one from last year when I was fishing with my dad in Prince Edward Island. And the guy had a kill tag, and so he got to catch that one that weighed over 700 pounds. And it was awesome. It was awesome to hang out and fish with my dad, do that whole thing. And he caught that one, all stand up, everything. I mean, it was good stuff.
Wow, that's unreal. That's remarkable. That's awesome. Sure, that must have been a really great memory. Nicholas
Oh,
is
it
checking
is,
in.
it is.
Nicholas is checking in. You did my 80s era international 52 speed and BP to 80. What is the full drag rating on that?
What, okay,
For 80, he said.
oh, for 80-pound test is what we did it for. That means that you'll have approximately 20 pounds of range on the slider, put it in gear and have a light bit of drag as soon as you put it in gear, and 20 pounds of drag at strike with a full spool of line and just after it's been done. If you check it 10 years later, it very well might be more or it might be less, but
Yeah, and if it was, let's say it was 100-pound test, it's the same thing, around the 25%, which would be 25 pounds of drag, and that's another, leads me to something else. So when you get up that heavy, let's say above 100 to 130 to 200, you really have to find out from the fisherman whether he's doing it stand up, chair fishing, stuff like that. Because if the guy says, yeah, I'm fishing 200-pound test, well, guess what? And you're doing it stand up, most people aren't going to be fishing 50 pounds of drag at strike. And so you have to kind of adjust that to a lower percentage. So you have to find out those questions. But normally it's 25% of whatever he's asked it to do.
Awesome. Awesome. Jim is asking, do you have any really famous customers? You don't have to name them, but inquiring minds want to know.
So we have done reels for the owner before Jerry Jones, the guy that owned the Cowboys, with Retex Ram. We've done it for the guy that used to own the Oakland A's. Guys that have owned, there's Nick Faldo, some other guys too. Yeah,
Tyson, Don Tyson, Tyson's Fried Chickens. So we've done quite a few.
and Bruce Posthumous, he's
Yes.
really famous.
Wow, that's quite a resume there. Another question from Mr. Trevor Sheets. Grandpa, you have to say your favorite trip was with me on our 12-day.
And that was awesome. That was really cool.
I took Trevor on a 12-day Supreme trip between Christmas and New Year's. He missed a couple days of school, and we went down to the Riviera. Trevor was a skinny little runt then, and he didn't weigh 100 pounds, I don't think. And the first day he broke 100 pounds. Next day he got something like a 140, and then he got a 187.
It was 177.
No, 178. He got a 178 the last day. So he did real well.
Wow.
He really had fun. He caught Wahoo. He did a good job, and he was to tell you the truth, he was a real gentleman on board. He knew how to handle himself.
Wow, that's awesome. And I'm sure he probably made you pretty proud as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Awesome.
he ruined it for me with all my fishing. He took them out like fall fishing like early, and I couldn't take him anywhere. He's like, oh yeah, well, I caught a blue marlin at 7 or 8 or whatever it is. That's all 3 of my kids. Same thing. He ruined them all.
Wow.
The normal grass stuff.
Yeah. Last couple of questions here. Richard's asking, what's the top range line test and bluefin tuna that a factory TLD 32 handle? Wait, Let me re-ask that. What's the top range line test and bluefin tuna that a factory TLD 30 can handle? Is there much you can do to increase that?
Well,
Okay, first thing, a factory TLD 30 is a graphite frame. Okay, great reel. They say you should never fish anything heavier than 50 pound on it. Okay, now I've heard people use 80-pound Spectre on it, and you won't hurt the frame as long as you don't get into a harness. If you get into a harness, you may hurt the frame, or if you try to pull too much drag on it, you may bend the shaft, and then the spool hits the frame, and then the frame breaks. But if you stay down in your 50, 60-pound test line, that reel will give you a lot of performance. Guys have fished 80 on it for years, but if it's the graphite TLD 30,
Yeah.
I really don't feel that you should fish much more than 60 on it. Okay.
And we do work on those.
Yeah, we do
Guys-
work on
Guys do have us work on those. If it doesn't spin quite so good, we can get them to spin better. A little bit better drag performance, but it's a little bit different than some of the other ones here where we've completely blueprinted. We try not to push that one too heavy for what he was saying, is you just don't want to get those extra problems, right?
Great reels. I mean, they have been around as long as any 2-speed.
Bulletproof.
Yes.
Awesome, guys. Well, I can't believe it's been an hour or so, but guys, one more time, how do we get in contact with you if we want our 2-speed serviced and all that?
So our phone number here, you can give us a call, is area code 626-357-4441. Our website is cals2speed.com, and on there it's got the address and email and all that other stuff if you wanted to click on that. I know this is through Facebook. We also do have a page up on there. It should be on the same link that we were on there. And just drop us an email if you got a question, and we can go from there. Hopefully this COVID stuff's kind of somewhat ending, and they can get a vaccine soon. More people get out and go fishing.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for joining us this afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Thank you
Anytime.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Chris from CCA, California, and we will talk to you guys next week. Take care, guys.